Common wisdom suggests that basketball immortality is reserved for the first overall pick, but that assumption is flawed. Some of the game's most enduring icons emerged from the shadows, far removed from the lottery spotlight. These men didn't just walk onto the court, they had to claw for every inch of hardwood, silencing skepticism with pure will. Their paths from draft night were paved not with gold, but with uncertainty, criticism, and constant second-guessing. This collection of talent forces us to reimagine how we evaluate potential. Starting our retrospective at number 10, we find a man whose arrival was quiet, yet his departure left a deafening void. By the time he walked away, he had carved out a legacy worthy of Springfield. We are talking about Tony Parker. His ascent to the pinnacle of the league wasn't met with fanfare. In 2001, San Antonio spent the 28th selection on a 19-year-old French teenager. Sleight of frame and unproven, he didn't look like a cornerstone. Evaluation reports wondered if he could survive the American game's brutality. Even Greg Popovich, a mastermind of the sport, harbored deep reservations. Early on, the connection frayed, with Popovich nearly cutting the cord, unimpressed by his defensive lapses and command of the floor. In that system, forgiveness is rare and patience is thin. But Parker possessed a quiet fortitude. By his sophomore campaign, he demonstrated that he belonged in the rotation. His teardrop floater, blinding speed, and composure under fire turned him into the engine of the Spurs machine. Once he found his rhythm, the trajectory was vertical. By the end, Parker stood as a four-time champion. His crowning individual moment arrived in 2007, claiming Finals MVP honors after he dismantled Cleveland in 4 straight games. Coupled with 6 All-Star nods, he cemented himself as one of the era's premier floor generals. Yet, his true value lay in how he orchestrated the San Antonio attack. With a surgical mid-range game and vision that unlocked the floor, he had a habit of carving through the paint, leaving giants grasping at air. He didn't rely on highlight reel dunks, but his consistency and command made him the bedrock of a modern dynasty. Now, if Parker's rise was improbable, the next narrative borders on fiction. Selected 57th one spot from the bottom stands a figure who redefined international basketball. Enter Manu Ginobili. He was chosen near the absolute end of the 1999 selection process. At that moment, he was a ghost, a foreign mystery with vague promise. Truthfully, the consensus was that he would never cross the ocean to step onto an NBA court.
I sit at home, I watch the draft, and we pick people that I've never heard of. Sitting there, Emmanuel Ginobili. Who did we just pick?
But Ginóbili, defined by wild creativity and reckless abandon, he became the heartbeat of San Antonio. Over his tenure, he secured 4 rings and claimed the 6th Man of the Year trophy in 2008. Add in 2 All-Star selections, and you see a man who proved you don't need to start to be a star, but the numbers don't capture the magic. It was his artistry. He imported a distinct rhythm, making the Euro step a staple weapon for scorers everywhere. He competed with a ferocity that bordered on madness, sacrificing his body on the defensive end and driving into traffic without hesitation. Remember, this man was nearly undrafted. Yet, he delivered in the highest leverage moments, burying daggers in the finals. He possessed the humility to sit and the talent to take over, teaching us that impact outweighs status. Landing at number 8 is a figure who wasn't invisible, but certainly wasn't projected for immortality. Taken in the middle of the 2011 first round by Indiana, he never suited up for the Pacers. That night, San Antonio acquired him, a transaction that altered the league's landscape for a decade. Back then, Kawhi was viewed as a raw tool set, recognized primarily for his wingspan and defensive instincts. Doubts regarding his jump shot anchored his draft stock, preventing a lottery selection. A few seasons later, Leonard hadn't just developed, he had mutated into a monster. Today, he stands as a 2-time champion, 2-time Finals MVP, and double winner of the Defensive Player of the Year. His dominance on both sides of the ball ranks him among the greatest two-way forces the game has ever seen. But the defining trait is his robotic composure in chaos. Consider the buzzer beater against Philadelphia in Game 7 of the 2019 postseason. The ball kissed the iron 4 agonizing times before falling, sealing his status as one of the coldest assassins to ever lace them up. Upon arriving in San Antonio, he treated the gym like a laboratory, dissecting his mechanics with the staff to perfect his shot and evolve into a lethal two-way weapon. By 2014, he was the Finals MVP, dismantling the Miami Heat's dynasty And in 2019, he hoisted the Toronto Raptors to their maiden championship, claiming a second Finals MVP to secure his legacy. Yet, the true anomaly of his greatness lies in the silence. In an era where fame is currency, Kawhi remains a ghost. While his peers broadcast every thought online, he remains elusive, letting the scoreboard speak for him. At number 7, we find a pioneer who had to dismantle the stigma that European players lacked the grit for the American hardwood. Consider the journey of Dirk Nowitzki, the 7-footer who reinvented the position. When he went 9th overall in 1998, few understood what Dallas saw in him. The bias was heavy back then. Imports were viewed with skepticism, often labeled as finesse players, unable to endure the NBA's brutal physical grind. Dirk looked the part: tall, slender, unproven. To the critics, he was just another gamble destined to fold under pressure. But they missed the artistry. He wasn't a traditional big man. He possessed the touch of a guard and a basketball intellect that was light years ahead. It didn't take long for the skepticism to turn into awe. By the time he hung up his jersey, he was a 14-time All-Star, the 2007 MVP, and finally, a world champion. His magnum opus came in 2011, orchestrating a stunning takedown of LeBron, Wade, and Bosh in the finals. His resilience throughout that playoff run etched his name in stone among the immortals, and consider the loyalty Dirk spent his entire 21-year odyssey with the Mavericks. That kind of devotion is a relic in the modern game. What made him unique was the one-legged fadeaway, an unorthodox, impossible-to-block silhouette that became one of the sport's most enduring images. Modern giants like Kevin Durant and Nikola Jokic owe a debt to Dirk for proving big men could dominate from the perimeter. Sliding into number 6 is a figure of pure, unadulterated consistency. A man so dependable, the nickname the Mailman wasn't just a moniker, it was a guarantee. This is the story of Karl Malone. Drafted 13th by the Utah Jazz in 1985, everyone saw raw power, but no one predicted he would climb to the second highest scoring peak in history at the time. Doubters questioned if he could keep up with the league's velocity, but the Jazz recognized a rare blend of granite strength and blue-collar work ethic. Malone didn't just adapt, he bulldozed his way through. At 6'9", 250 pounds, he was a sledgehammer in the paint, punishing opponents on offense and defense alike. Across 19 seasons, he averaged 25 points and 10 boards, a statistic of longevity that defies logic. Let's examine the resume. 2 MVP trophies in 97 and 99, 14 All-Star nods, 11 first-team selections. He suited up for 1,476 regular season battles, a monument to iron will and physical conditioning. But the number that truly staggers is the scoring total, 36,928 points. He sits third all-time, trailing only Kareem and LeBron. Though the championship ring eluded him, he stood on the precipice of glory, locked in war against Jordan's Bulls in 97 and 98. Those defeats don't diminish him. They highlight the era's ferocity. His standing as the ultimate power forward remains unshaken. Entering at number 5 is the disruptor, the man who didn't just play the game, he fundamentally broke it. His range forced defenses to evolve, creating a new era of basketball. We are talking about Stephen Curry. Selected 7th by Golden State in 2009, the scouting report was filled with hesitation. Could a player of his stature survive among the giants? He was labeled too slight, too fragile, lacking the explosive athleticism required for stardom. Critics wondered if a game built on deep perimeter shots and lightning-quick releases could sustain success against elite pressure. History, as it turns out, had a different plan. Today, Steph is a 4-time champion, 2-time MVP, and the undisputed king of the three-point arc. He isn't just a shooter, he is the shooter. But the stats don't tell the whole story, it's the paradigm shift. Before Curry, the three-pointer was a secondary option. After Curry, it became the primary weapon of warfare. The turning point arrived in the 2015-16 campaign, leading the Warriors to 73 wins. He became the first unanimous MVP, dropping 30 a night while draining an absurd 45% from deep. It stands as the only unanimous selection in history, fueled by 30 points a night and a surreal 45% accuracy from distance. Evening after evening, he sank impossible shots that left crowds and rivals alike shaking their heads in sheer disbelief. Yet Curry's path was never paved with gold. In the early days, those fragile ankles threatened to shatter his career before it truly began, nearly derailing his immense promise. It is a known fact that the Warriors almost shipped him to Milwaukee in 2012 due to those very fears. Fortunately for the Bay Area, the front office held the line, and the rest is written in the history books. From the undisputed greatest shooter to ever walk the earth, to a man who rewrote the laws of physics with his drive and agility, we turn our gaze to the 2-time MVP who ruled the league. Transitioning from the Bay to global iconography, sitting at number 4 is Giannis. The Greek Freak fell to the 15th pick in the 2013 draft. Back then, he was just a raw sketch of a player, an 18-year-old kid from Athens with only a few years of serious ball under his belt. Scouts recognized the ceiling but terrified themselves over his skeletal frame and unpolished mechanics. The consensus was that he was a project, years away from making a dent in the association, and initially, they weren't wrong. When Giannis stepped onto the hardwood, he was listed at 6'9" and a whisper over 190 pounds. But what the reports missed was a fire inside him that burned hotter than anyone else's. Today, Giannis stands as a 2-time MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year, and most critically, a world champion. His magnum opus arrived in 2021 when he dragged the Bucks to their first banner in half a century, dropping 50 points in a title-clinching Game 6. That night will endure. As one of the most dominant individual displays in postseason lore, there is a story that perfectly captures his essence. When he first landed in Milwaukee, he was so unaccustomed to American life that he wired almost every cent of his paycheck back to his family. One evening, he sent so much home that he couldn't afford a taxi to the stadium and literally ran through the streets to make the game. Shifting from one of the modern era's physical marvels to a prodigy who leaped into the fire straight from high school, we arrive at the Black Mamba himself, Kobe Bryant. Kobe was selected 13th overall by the Charlotte Hornets in the 1996 draft. Yes, the Hornets held the ticket, but Kobe never suited up for them, traded immediately to the Los Angeles Lakers that same night in what became one of the most lopsided exchanges in sports history. Back then, the league viewed prep-to-pro prospects with skepticism. Executives weren't convinced an 18-year-old, regardless of talent, could endure the physical battering and psychological warfare of the NBA. But Kobe was cut from a different cloth. He possessed a self-belief and a maniacal work ethic that isolated him from the pack instantly. Time moved on, and Kobe evolved into one of the fiercest competitors the sport has ever witnessed. A 5-time champion, 2-time Finals MVP, 18-time All-Star, and the league MVP in 2008. His accolades form a mountain, yet beyond the statistics, it was his approach to the craft that cemented his legend. His ferocity, footwork, and Mamba mentality became the blueprint for a generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed the second greatest scoring performance in NBA history.
He became a global statesman for basketball, expanding the game's borders. In retirement, he claimed an Oscar for his animated love letter, Dear Basketball, and dedicated his final chapter to mentoring the youth, passing down the wisdom of the game he loved. Now, moving from one of the most lethal scorers in history to a genius discovered during a fast food advertisement, specifically while the screen displayed a cheesy quesadilla hugging a beefy burrito, let us discuss the reigning Finals MVP and 2-time league MVP, Nikola Jokic. The Joker was taken 41st overall by the Denver Nuggets in the 2014 draft. That is correct, 41st. When Jokic arrived, he didn't fit the mold of a future icon. He was viewed as a heavy-footed big man with soft hands but glaring liabilities on defense and conditioning. At that moment, even the Nuggets faithful had no idea what they held in that 6'11" Serbian center. But Jokic wasted no time rewriting that script. Fast forward to the present, and he stands as a 2-time MVP, a champion, and a Finals MVP. His capacity to control the flow of a game through scoring, rebounding, and surgical passing renders him arguably the most versatile weapon in the sport. He is widely regarded as the greatest passing big man to ever lace them up, and deservedly so. Jokic scans the floor with the mind of a point guard, routinely threading needles that leave even his own teammates breathless. His defining hour struck in the 2023 Finals, where he guided Denver to their maiden championship. Throughout that series, he averaged 30 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists a night, carving his name in stone among the immortals. And now, we reach number 1, the figure who redefined the very concept of greatness and set the gold standard for excellence. We are talking about Michael Jordan. Jordan was selected 3rd overall in the 1984 draft by the Chicago Bulls. Yes, 3rd. The Houston Rockets selected Hakeem Olajuwon with the top pick, a logical move, and the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland fatefully chose Sam Bowie 2nd, valuing size over genius, a decision that allowed the single most iconic figure in the history of the sport to land right in Chicago's lap. From the second he touched the hardwood, Jordan was a force of nature. His resume reads like a myth. A 6-time world champion, 5-time MVP, 10-time scoring leader, and 14-time All-Star. Yet, the cold, hard stats fail to capture the soul of his dominance. The true turning point arrived in 1991, when he finally seized his first ring, dismantling Magic and the Lakers to signal a changing of the guard. That victory sparked an empire, with Jordan powering the Bulls to 6 titles in 8 years, claiming the Finals MVP trophy every single time. But Jordan was more than a winner, he was a phenomenon. His obsession, his discipline, and moments like the shot in 1989 or the sheer will of the flu game in the 97 Finals became mythology. Beyond the arena, his brand revolutionized culture, making him the ultimate ambassador for the game. And that concludes our look at the 10 greatest players who were never drafted first. These men proved that being chosen first matters far less than how you finish. Of course, the history books hold other giants who missed this specific list but command respect. Legends like John Stockton, the unreachable king of assists and steals, or Paul Pierce, who restored Boston's glory in 2008. We cannot overlook Draymond Green, taken 35th, who evolved into the defensive soul of a modern dynasty. It is a stark reminder that the draft is just an invitation. The legacy is what you build with it. So, which overlooked star is your personal favorite? Did I miss a name that demands to be remembered? Write to me in the comments below, as I truly value your perspective. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.